H2K Infosys provides world-class online IT training, staffing and software testing solutions to customers worldwide. H2K Infosys supports 100% job-oriented training, hands-on project work, cloud test lab, resume preparation and review, mock interviews, robust syllabus. One-time pay, lifetime access to live classes and videos. H2K Infosys has won the trust of thousands of students worldwide. For free demo class, visit h2kinfosys.com.
So this is Priya here from H2K Infosys. In case if you want, you can make a note of my email address, priya@h2kinfosys.com. And if you have any sort of technical issues during the meeting, you can call this number 770771269. So this is the software testing course that we are conducting. And after the completion of this course, you'll be able to work as a software tester in the IT projects. So we will start with the basics in today's session. The topic that we are going to discuss today, it's going to be software engineering basics. Now, since most of the people who enroll in this QA course, they are from non-IT background, you need to understand some basics of the software engineering, because being an IT professional, you should know how the IT projects are going to work. All right. And also, testing is not an independent activity. You'll have to interact with the other members of the IT project team for the testing purpose, and that is how you should, that is why you have to understand the basics over here. So what is the meaning of software? It is a set of programs developed for specific purpose. And we have several examples of the software here, like the Gmail, Microsoft Office tools, the GoToMeeting software that you're using in order to join the session. And then we have the billing systems in Walmart and Macy's, mobile applications. If you just look around you, you find plenty of examples of the software. And software is applicable to the various fields that you could name. And there are different well-defined steps that are followed in order to develop the software. We call it as SDLC. SDLC means it is Software Development Life Cycle. It is a step-by-step approach to develop the software. So here you need to understand what are those different steps that are followed in order to understand the software. What exactly is done in each of these steps? Who is involved? And then what are the different documents that are created? We start with the requirement gathering. The business analyst will meet the client and gather all the requirements, the business requirements that are related to the project. And all this information gets documented in the business requirement document. BRD means it is business requirement document. Then the next step is planning, wherein the project manager will plan all the activities of the project, the schedule, and then the budget of the project has to be estimated. And who is involved here? Project manager. The document that is created, we call it as a project plan document. Then we have the analysis. Here the specifications of the requirements can be created. By the business analyst, means each and every requirement is explained in detail by the BA and documented in the functional specification document. Then the next step is the design phase, wherein we have an architect who will prepare the programming logic. and the design document is created. The next step is development. The programming is done here, wherein the developers will write the programs. The document that is created, it is called as a source code document. Then the next step is testing, wherein the defects are identified by the developers and also verify the requirements of the client. So this is done by the QA team, and the testers will write the test documents. The next step is deployment, wherein the software will be installed on the client computers, or you can also say the software is released to the client. Now this step is done by the developers along with the system administrators, and the document that is prepared here, we call it as an installation manual. Then we have the UAT, wherein the real users will do the testing. The BA and QA will assist the users for the testing. The document that is created, it is called as a user manual. So these are the 8 steps that are followed in the software development in order to develop the software. And you go to any kind of IT projects, these are the standard steps that will be followed in order to develop the software. Now you can take a screenshot of this one, and I'm going to explain each of these steps in detail. Now I'm going to explain all these steps in detail. All of you please pay attention. We start with the scope identification. We have the business analyst here who will meet the client, gather all the requirements, and then share it with the IT project team. And when we say requirements, these are the different functionalities that are to be implemented in the software, the data that is to be stored in the database, what should be the performance of the software, what are the different security features that are to be implemented in the software, what are the standards that are to be followed, the quality related standards, domain standards. So all this kind of information will be gathered from the client by the business analyst. How many users will use the software, all right? So each and every requirement, or let's say the information about the project, should be gathered by the business analyst from the client. And all this information is getting documented here in the document which is called as business requirement document. Then we have the next step here which is called as planning. And in the planning phase, there is a project manager who will plan and control all the activities of the project. The project manager will prepare the schedule of the project. Here we have the sequence of activities that are to be performed in the project. And then we have the budget. It is a cost estimation, the human resource related cost, the software license related cost, the hardware cost, miscellaneous cost, and so on. Okay, so we have the different kind of cost that will be estimated, and it will get added into the budget. And all this information is documented in the project plan document. Then the next step is analysis. We have the business analyst here who will explain each and every requirements in detail. So whatever requirements are gathered here in the scope identification, all these requirements will be explained in detail. Or you can say the specifications of the requirements are provided here. And there are different ways in order to provide the detailed information, like a mock-up diagram can be used, or some kind of process flow diagrams, flow charts, use cases, user stories. So there are different ways of representing the information. Okay, process flow diagrams can be drawn. All right, the different kind of diagrams and then the different kind of formats can be used in order to represent the requirement or explain the requirement in detail, whatever would be the suitable one that can be used here. For example, let's consider the login functionality. It will have a mock-up diagram like we have the username text box, password text box, and then the sign in button. If you click on the sign in button, what is the next page that should open on the screen of the user? All this kind of diagrams will be provided by the BA. These are called as mock-up diagrams. And basically, the mock-up diagrams are useful in order to have the same visualization about the software. So everybody in the team should have the same visualization about the software if they have to work together. The document that is created here, we call it as a functional specification document. Then we have the design here, wherein we have an architect. So if you click on the sign in button, what happens on the screen of the user is explained by the BA. If you click on the sign in button, what are the different programs that are running in the backend, how these programs should be interlinked, and what are the steps in each of these programs. All right, so this is defined or this is designed by an architect. The structure of the software in the backend, or let's say a blueprint of the software, can be created by an architect and it gets documented in the design document. Now these are the first four steps in order to develop the software. I will wait for a minute. All of you, please go through this quickly. If you have any questions, please write your questions on the chat box. First, take a screenshot, okay? And after that, read everything carefully. If you have any questions, please let me know your questions on the chat box. I'll wait for 1 or 2 minutes, okay? Now, the next step, participants, after the design, we have the development. In the development, we have the developers here or the programmers, and they will refer to the design document, of the architect, that is prepared by the architect, okay, for the programming. Or you can say the coding. So development means here the actual programming or the coding is done by the developers. And in order to do the programming, they can use the high-end programming languages like we have the C++, then we have the Java, and then so on. The document that is written here, we call it as a program file. Or we call it as a source code document. After the development, we have the next step, which is called as testing. In the testing, the testers test the software in order to identify the defects and also verify the requirements of the client. The document that is created here, we call this as test document. And what are the different test documents that are created in the project? This we are going to discuss in our regular sessions in the manual testing. And after the testing, we have the next step, which is called as a deployment. In the deployment, we have the developers along with the system administrators. Who will release a software to the client, or in other words, install the software on the client computers. The document that is created here, we call this as an installation manual. After the deployment, the next step is UAT, and we call this as user acceptance testing. So here the users will test the software. The BA and QA will assist the users for the testing. The document that is created here, we call it as user manual. Now this installation manual, it has the different steps in order to install the software and also the software and hardware configuration or the system configuration that is required for the installation. User acceptance testing means here the real users will check the software, and as a BA or as a QA you will have to assist the users for the testing process. So as a QA you can write some simple test cases, or in case if there are any defects identified by the user, you have to cross verify them, report it to the developer and get them fixed on their behalf. User manual has the different steps in order to use a software. So these are the further 4 steps in order to develop the software. All of you please go through this. Let me know if you have any questions in this one. So these are the 8 different steps that are followed in order to do the software development. But again, every software is different, the requirements are different, the client is different, the technology is different, budget is different. So you can see that the overall project scenario is different. And that is why we have the standard approaches here in order to develop the software, and we call them as SDLC models. And who decides which model is to be implemented in the project? It is decided by the project manager. Alright. So here we have the sequential design process, and then we have the iterative or the incremental SDLC models. Okay. For example, we have the waterfall and V model, and then we have the spiral and agile scrum. So first we'll have a look at the waterfall model.